The impact connected perfectly. Nobody inside the Osaka International Martial Arts Center anticipated the outcome. Not the Char spectators occupying every seat, not the Federation officials positioned at the scoring table, not even the championship referee who stood merely 6 feet away and still couldn't fully explain how it occurred in that exact moment. One instant, Bruce Lee remained standing at the center of the competition platform, receiving what appeared. Let's rewind 20 minutes, because that strike didn't materialize without context, and comprehending precisely how it connected represents the sole pathway to understanding everything that transpired afterward. Osaka International Martial Arts Center on a Saturday championship evening in April 1972 possesses a distinctive atmosphere that sets it apart from most large sporting venues. The audience hasn't assembled for passive entertainment purposes. These individuals actively train, many having done so for years. They attend championship events the way devoted musicians attend concerts, to witness something they comprehend thoroughly being performed at the highest possible. The championship scheduled that evening was the All Japan Women's Karate Open, which despite its title, drew serious competitors from across Asia. During its 6-year existence, the event had developed a reputation for exceptional final bracket quality. The Women's Open division consistently produced outstanding competition, and this evening proved no exception. The woman who secured the championship that night had navigated through 4 matches over the course of the evening, making each conte. Her name was Eiko Yamashita. She was 28 years old, born in Kobe, and had studied Gojurao karate since age 11. 17 years of dedicated practice had produced something the Japanese karate community discussed in the particular manner they reserved for things that had ceased surprising them, because the outcome remained consistently unchanged. 47 victories, 0 defeats. She had never experienced a competitive loss at any level, at any age, against any opponent. 40. She stood 5 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 155 pounds. What made her formidable wasn't any single quality, but rather the specific combination of several: exceptional timing, genuine power for her size, and an ability to read opponents that her coaches consistently described as the foundation enabling everything else. She perceived things coming before they arrived. Her final match that evening pitted her against a fighter from Fukuoka with her own significant record. The Fukuoka competitor made the final challenging in ways the crowd appreciated, and the contest lasted 4 minutes before Eiko secured victory on points with no ambiguity remaining. The audience gave her what she had rightfully earned: 4,000 serious practitioners offering genuine appreciation for a genuine achievement. Then the Federation chairman took the microphone and announced something the front sections received first, which then rippled through the building in the specific wave of recognition that always preceded Bruce Lee's name reaching a full room. He explained that for the trophy presentation that evening, the Federation had arranged a special guest. He expressed his honor at introducing someone whose contribution to the international visibility of martial arts had been significant and whose presence at the night. 4,000 people produced the sound of 4,000 people who had just received something they genuinely wanted, not the polite response, but the authentic one. Bruce walked from the front row where he had remained seated since the card began. He accepted the championship trophy from the Federation chairman and crossed the platform toward the center where Eiko stood. He stopped at the appropriate distance, brought his hands together, and bowed. Eiko looked at him. She did not bow in return. The 4,000 individuals in the building registered the refused bow in the precise way Japanese martial arts communities register such refusals, completely and immediately, with a specific weight derived from understanding the exact meaning of what had just occurred. The Federation chairman shifted uncomfortably. The championship referee looked at Eiko, then at Bruce. Her coaches, positioned at the platform's edge, exchanged a knowing glance. Eiko took the announcement microphone before anyone could move toward her. She spoke in Japanese. "I want to say something." She also said it clearly in English because she had prepared this and wanted it understood without requiring translation. She stated, "Have trained for 17 years. Have won 47 competitive matches without a single loss. Have given this discipline everything, have every day without exception. Tonight I won the championship of this event in front of everyone here." She paused briefly, then continued, "The organization presenting my trophy chose a Hollywood film actor to present it, someone who has built a career performing martial arts for cameras. Someone who has made significant money from the image of what serious practitioners build through years of actual work. She looked at Bruce directly. Your films are very successful, but success in film and genuine mastery of a martial discipline are different things. I have not spent 17 years to stand here and receive my trophy from someone whose relationship to this discipline is primarily commercial. She concluded, I will not bow to a film performance and I will not accept this trophy from you. 4,000 people remained very still. Bruce stood on the platform holding the trophy. He looked at Echo with the quality of attention that represented his most consistent feature in any context, complete and patient, reading what actually existed in front of him rather than what the surface presented. He said, May I respond? She gestured toward the microphone. The gesture communicated yes in a tone that suggested go ahead and demonstrate that it's worth responding to. He said, I started training when I was 13, studied under IP Man, have spent the last 19 years developing and teaching a martial arts system that I call Jeet Kune Do. Currently have students across 2 countries who train in it seriously every day. He paused. What you see in my films is real technique. The camera shows it. It does not create it. I'm a martial artist who has also made films. The order of those 2 things matters. It has always mattered. Echo said, that's what every performer claims. Bruce responded, and what every genuine practitioner says. The claim sounds identical either way. The only method to distinguish between them is to test it. She said, then let's test it. The platform erupted, not from violence, but from 4,000 people comprehending simultaneously what was being proposed and producing the sound that understanding generates when it arrives all at once. The Federation chairman was already moving. 2 officials had risen to their feet. Echo's head coach had come through the platform ropes. Bruce addressed all of them. It's all right. The chairman protested, Mr. Lee, this is not. Bruce interrupted. She asked a genuine question. It deserves a genuine answer. He set the trophy down at the platform's edge carefully, upright. He looked at Echo. Your terms. She specified, karate competition rules, standard scoring, your techniques against mine. The championship referee calls it. Bruce agreed. The chairman looked at 4,000 people who were not going anywhere and made the specific decision that event organizers make when situations have moved beyond the reach of their decisions, to make it as safe as possible and then let it be what it was going to be. The referee established terms. Both competitors acknowledged. The referee stepped back. They found their positions. Echo in her Goju-Ryu stance, 17 years of practice expressed in how she carried her weight, her hands, her attention, everything precise and specific and built from daily work over a long time. Bruce standing the way Bruce stood, the non-stance that was a stance, the balanced readiness that appeared like nothing particular yet represented something very specific. The referee indicated they could begin. What happened in the next 3 seconds is what the rest of this story revolves around. Echo moved first. She came forward with a front kick, fast and technically correct, aimed at reading Bruce's movement pattern from his initial response. Bruce's body shifted, only slightly. The kick passed through the space his center had been occupying, and his right hand came up and touched her extending shin as it passed. A point contact, brief and specific. The referee called a point. Echo recovered and came back immediately with a reverse punch, no hesitation. The speed of someone who had thrown this technique 10,000 times. The reverse punch was executed with the full rotation that Goju-Ryu built into it, carrying genuine power. Bruce slipped it to his left. The punch passed beside his face. His left hand came forward and touched her extended shoulder. Second point. The platform had gone from 4,000 people making considerable noise to 4,000 people making very little. Not because nothing was happening, but because what was happening required full attention to follow. Echo reset. She was not rattled. She was too experienced to be rattled. She was incorporating what the 2 exchanges had given her information-wise and using it to modify her approach, which was what serious competitors did. She came with a combination, jab to cross the front kick, 3 connected elements, each one setting up the next. Then she did something that nobody else in this story had done, and that the front rows would still be discussing afterward. She varied the timing between the jab and the cross by exactly half a second, a deliberate break in the rhythm designed to make the cross arrive when the defensive response to the jab remained incomplete. It represented excellent technique, genuinely excellent, the kind requiring years to develop because it demanded understanding not just how to throw, but how opponents respond. The jab arrived, and Bruce moved to slip it. The cross arrived half a second later than the usual combination timing, which meant it arrived while Bruce's slipping motion remained in progress, while his weight was slightly committed to the direction of the slip. It landed, right palm strike, Bruce's left shoulder, hard enough for the sound to carry to the third row. Bruce stepped back half a pace. The Osaka hall fell completely silent. 4,000 serious martial arts practitioners watching one of the most famous fighters in the world get hit cleanly and step back half a pace. And then Bruce smiled. Not performed, not managing how it appeared, the genuine small smile of someone who had just received specific and valuable information. He looked at Eiko and said, "That was real." She looked at him. Her expression had shifted from the focused intensity of competition into something more complicated, a serious practitioner recognizing that the acknowledgement she had just received carried specific meaning. She said, "Yes." He said, "The half-second break in the combination, you built that specifically." She said, "Yes." He said, "It's the best technique I've faced in a long time." She looked at him for a moment, then she came again. This time he was ready for the timing variation. He had felt it once and filed it. Now he knew what to anticipate. The jab arrived, and he moved for it. When the cross came half a second later, he had already accounted for the break, already positioned for the timing she intended to use. His left hand redirected the cross at the forearm, and from that position his right palm found her sternum. He stepped forward and guided her backward with her own momentum, and she sat down, not hard, not violent. She was on her feet in 2 seconds. She rose with the controlled urgency of someone who had never sat down on a competition mat before and wasn't processing it the way she had expected to process new experiences. She came again, he moved, and she found nothing. She came again, he moved, and she found nothing. The pattern established itself with a quality that the front rows, serious practitioners who understood what they were watching, began to recognize as something they had not observed before. Not the evasion of someone retreating, but the constant repositioning of someone who was always somewhere other than where the attack anticipated. She attempted the timing variation again. He read the hip loading that preceded the jab and was already adjusting for the cross when the jab hadn't fully arrived yet. His left hand found her lead wrist as the cross came and redirected it. She stumbled past him, and his right hand touched the back of her shoulder. She turned, and he was already somewhere else. The crowd had been building towards something that had not yet arrived and was now very close. Eiko stopped. She stood in the center of the platform and looked at Bruce, who stood 8 feet away with his hands at his sides, his breathing not significantly altered from when the exchange began. She said, "I can't find you." He said, "No." She said, "I vary the timing and you still read it." He said, "The hip loads the same way regardless of the timing variation. The variation is in the arm. The hip preparation remains consistent." She looked at her own hip. "I've trained for 17 years." He said, "The hip loading is built that deep. It's not a flaw. It's where the power comes from. It's just also where the information resides." She was quiet for a moment. She came again, and he moved. She came again, and he moved. Each time, the exchange produced the same result, her technique finding nothing and his hand finding her at a point of contact that communicated clearly what was available from that position. She went down 3 more times. Each time she got up immediately. Each time she came back with the controlled purpose of someone who was not accepting the result they were receiving. Eiko came off the platform and pursued him from behind. Bruce had started moving toward the platform's edge when Eiko came off it after him, not through the steps, but off it, dropping down from the platform surface with the controlled urgency of someone who had decided the exchange was not finished regardless of what the referee had called. Her coaches reached for her. She went around them. The security staff at the platform corners were in motion. She reached Bruce before any of them reached her, and her hand closed on his shoulder from behind and pulled. He turned with the pull rather than against it. As he turned, his right forearm intercepted her reaching arm at the elbow. The turn continued, and she found herself in a position her training had not prepared her for, because the turn had converted her pull into a direction her balance couldn't follow. She went down on the platform floor. She came up immediately. The crowd was on its feet, not cheering in any simple sense. The sound of 4,000 people who had been watching something remarkable and were now watching it transform into something else, something more charged and more uncertain. She came at him again. He redirected her again. She went down again. Her head coach had come through the platform ropes and was moving toward her. The federation chairman was speaking into the announcement microphone about competition rules and safety protocols. Two officials had formed a loose perimeter. She went down a third time and came up a third time. And the third time, Bruce stepped back and put both hands up, not in fighting position, but in the position of someone indicating they were done, that this was finished, that nothing remained to prove. He looked at her and said, "It's enough." She said, "It's not enough." He said, "For me, it is." Her coach reached her then, took her arm, and said something urgent in her ear. This time she let him hold her, not because she was finished, but because something in what he said had reached the part of her that remained the serious practitioner beneath the reaction. The part that understood what was happening had moved past the point where continuing served anything she actually valued. She stood in the platform space with her coach beside her and the officials around her and 4,000 people watching. She was breathing hard, and her expression was doing the sorting that serious people's expressions do after significant events. Bruce picked up the championship trophy from the platform edge. He crossed to her and held it out. She looked at it. She looked at him. She said, "You got hit." He said, "Yes." She said, "I hit you clean." He said, "You did." The timing variation was genuine. Hadn't seen that before. She said, "And you smiled." He said, "Because I learned something. That technique is real. You built it across 17 years and it's real." She said, "And then you read it." He said, "The second time, the hip told me before the arm did." She was quiet. Then she said, "I've never been put down on a competition mat, not once in 47 matches." He said, "I know." She said, "I said things tonight." He said, "Yes." She said, "In front of everyone." He said, "Yes." She said something in Japanese to her coach. Her coach answered quietly. She looked at Bruce. She said, "I was wrong." She said it the way she said everything, directly and without cushioning it, not performing the admission, making it. She looked at the 4,000 people in the Osaka hall who were watching her. She spoke in Japanese, then in English. Made a statement tonight about the man standing next to me. Said he had no standing here. Said his martial arts was commercial rather than real. She paused. I was wrong. He hit back harder than anything I said. She bowed, the full bow given completely. Bruce returned it. 4,000 people in Osaka responded with the warmest sound of the evening. She took the trophy. Then Eiko's trainer came through the platform ropes. His name was Miyamoto, 62 years old, 20 years coaching Eiko, and 3 decades in karate before that. A serious man, a capable man, someone who had built a significant competitive career before his body stopped being able to do what his mind still understood completely. He came through the ropes, not toward Eiko, but toward Bruce. He wasn't threatening, but he moved with the specific purpose of someone who had made a decision. He stopped 3 feet from Bruce and said in careful English, "What you did to her, the hip reading, show me." Bruce looked at him. "Right now." Miyamoto said, "She trains tomorrow at 6 in the morning. I need to understand what I'm correcting before I stand in front of her and try to correct it. Have been coaching her for 20 years. Nobody has ever found that. Have watched every match she has ever competed in. Have never seen what you just showed me." He said, "Please show me." Bruce looked at Eiko. She was still holding the trophy, watching this exchange with the focused attention that was simply how she processed things. Bruce said, "Come to the side of the platform." They went to the side of the platform, away from the center, away from the crowd and the officials who were managing the ceremony's conclusion. Miyamoto stood in front of Bruce, and Bruce showed him specifically and completely, walking him through the sequence of Eiko's initiation from the earliest signal forward, showing him what the hip loading looked like and when it appeared in the sequence and what it communicated. Miyamoto watched. He asked 2 questions. Bruce answered both. Miyamoto said, "I've watched her train every day for 20 years and I have never seen that." Bruce said, "Most coaches watch the technique. The information is in what precedes it." Miyamoto said, "How do I help her address it?" Bruce said, "She needs to start the initiation from a different place. The hip loading is producing the tail. The correction has to start at the weight transfer that loads the hip, not at the hip itself." Miyamoto said, "That's months." Bruce said, "Yes, her technique will be worse before it's better." Miyamoto nodded. He wasn't hearing discouragement. He was making mental notes about what the next 6 months of training had to contain. He said, "Thank you." He said it simply, the way people say things they mean completely. He went back to his fighter. Bruce could see them talking on the platform, Miyamoto speaking quietly, Eiko listening with the complete focused attention she brought to everything. The evening concluded. The crowd filed out into the Osaka night. The officials wrapped the ceremony. The platform was cleared. In the corridor, outside the competition area, Eiko found Bruce. She had changed out of her competition clothes. She carried the championship trophy under one arm. She said, "The hip loading, the weight transfer that precedes it. Miyamoto told me what you said. He said it's built deep, 17 years deep." She paused. "He said months." He said at minimum. Bruce said, "Yes." She said, "My technique will be worse." He said, "Yes, before it's better." She said, "I will do the month." He said, "I know." She said, "I came out here to ask you something." He said, "Ask." She said, "When I hit you, the shoulder strike, you moved back half a step." He said, "Yes." She said, "And you smiled." He said, "Yes." She said, "Why?" He said, "Because nobody had done that to me in a long time. The timing variation you built was something I hadn't seen. That's worth smiling at. That's worth being grateful for." She looked at him. "Most people would not be grateful for being hit." He said, "Most people aren't looking for the thing the hit contains. I'm always looking for that." She was quiet for a moment. "What did it contain?" He said, "It contained the information that you had built a timing variation sophisticated enough to find a gap in my reading. That's a real thing. It deserved acknowledgement." She said, "And then you read it." He said, "The second time, yes." She said, "Because the hip was consistent." He said, "Yes." She said, "You smiled when I hit you because you were already working out how to read the second version." He looked at her. He said, "Yes." She was quiet for another moment. She said, "I said you had no standing here." He said, "You said what you believed." She said, "I believed something incomplete." He said, "You updated it publicly. That's harder than what happened on the platform." She said, "No, it isn't." He said, "For most people, it is." She thought about this. She said, "Come to our training hall before you leave Osaka. Miyamoto wants to show you something about our combination sequencing. He thinks you'll find it interesting." He said, "What time?" She said, 6. He said, "I'll be there." She bowed. He returned it. She walked toward the exit. He stood in the corridor for a moment. The building was emptying around him. The lights in the competition area were being switched off section by section. The building returning to the quiet it held between events. He thought about the timing variation, about the half-second break between the jab and the cross that had found the gap in his slip, about what it represented. 17 years of deliberate technical development, producing something specifically designed to exploit the gap that appeared when an opponent committed to responding to the first technique. That was real work. That was the kind of thing that only appeared after a long time of serious practice. The ability to build something that's subtle and that's specific. He had gotten hit once. He had smiled. He had read it the second time. He was already thinking about how the principle of timing variation applied to his own system, where he hadn't fully developed it, and what the work of developing it would require. He walked toward the exit. The hit was already filed. The principle was already active. The morning training would be different because of tonight. That was what serious exchanges produced, not victories, but material for the next day's work. Subscribe if this story was worth your time. Tell me in the comments, what do you think Bruce was thinking in the half step he moved back after getting hit? Not the smile, the half step. I read everyone.